What's up, YouTube? So, a lot of you recently have been asking me about Hecarim skins and which Hecarim skins are my favorite, which ones are the ones I like using every game, right? My recommendations and all that stuff. So, I thought that today I'd make a little video doing a Hecarim skin tier list. So, even though I've been like playing Hecarim for years and years and years, and I've been in the streaming scene for about 3 years now, I've never actually done a Hecarim skin tier list before. So, this will be the best Hecarim world, right? 10 million mastery points on the champion, most games ever played, and my thoughts on Hecarim skins. So, without further ado, we'll get started. So, the first one we're going to start off with is Elderwood. So, this is a skin that I would say is probably his best skin, and the reason why is just because his Q animation is so fluid. Like, when you're running around and you're using Q on this, the Q animation feels the best, and it's very, very, very like simple as well. Like, it doesn't have the flashy animations that I think distract from the skin, and it also has such a good base model too that I don't know. Like, everything in general just feels good. Like, the mystical horse kind of vibe, the weapon feels like it's a perfect size, right? You have the animations in general for his E, his W, his R, everything is just super simple, with the Q animation being probably the best animation that feels super fluid. So that's why I'd say it's his best skin. The only thing I think Riot could do to make this skin even better is if they were to make chroma for it, where you could have like the golden chroma and like a red chroma and even an obsidian chroma, so that you could experiment a bit with the colors. But in general, I'd say Elderwood's his best skin. So now moving on to A tier, we're going to start off with Cosmic Charger. So, Cosmic Charger, I think, is one of Hecarim's better skins. The R animation feels really good. E animation feels super nice. W having like the constellations and everything around it, and just his like walking animation in general with the thing behind it. It's just such a great skin. The only reason I'm keeping it at A though is because the problem with Hecarim's Q in the skin is that I feel like his weapon just feels too blunt, if that makes sense. Whereas Elderwood feels very, very, very like clean and in a way kind of like a blade. I feel like Cosmic Charger feels way too much like a war axe. And because it feels like too much of a war axe and not as much like the actual weapon that he uses, which is like the pike, I don't really like it as much as I could. But if the weapon were to be slightly changed to, I guess, have more of like a curve on the edges and make it seem more of like a blade than it is a war axe, then I would probably put it S tier. But for now, I'll keep it at A tier. As for the next addition to A tier, and this is probably the one that'll make you guys really confused, I'm actually going to be putting Blood Knight. So a lot of people, they don't like Blood Knight. They think that it's a very, very like bad skin, that the animations are super outdated, and that all in all, it's just like a bad skin with a bad model. But the reason that I actually like it is because the weapon he has in it is just so cool. So the thing about me is I really like things that are simplistic, right? So things that aren't too flashy, aren't too outgoing, and just kind of like stick to the base that someone has or something possesses, and just kind of amplifies that a little bit. So that's the reason why I like the Blood Knight skin so much, is because even though it doesn't have any fancy animations, and even though nothing really changes, just the fact that it's a cool base model with a cool weapon makes it enough that I could literally spam hundreds of games on it. So that's why Blood Knight, I'll keep it A tier, even though the animations are bad and like nothing really changes, just because the weapon and the character model feels so great on it. So that's it for A tier. I would say that now we're gonna be getting into B tier. So for B tier skins, these are the skins that are more so like skins that aren't bad, but that I wouldn't go out of my way to use if I have them on an account. So to start off, I'm gonna be putting Headless. And the reason why, I'll actually put Headless and I'll put Reaper, because they're kind of like very, very similar. So the reason why Headless and Reaper are here is just because I think the skins are really nice, right? Like, the changes to them are just like insanely good. It gives you that kind of like horror feel, right? With the scythe and all these different things that make you feel like you're the god of death, right? But the reason why I'm not ranking them higher than B is because my problem with both of these is that the weapon just feels too one-sided. So when I say that, what I mean is, when you look at Elderwood Hecarim, right, it's almost like you have the staff and then the blade, which is like this, right? But even though the blade is like this, it makes it so that it doesn't look like if you were to hold it, it would be too heavy on one side. But when you have a scythe like this, it just feels like it's way too much overhanging on one side and there isn't enough focus on the other side. So that's my problem with both of these, right? It's just that I feel like there isn't enough balance for the weapon itself. That just makes it so that instead of these skins being S or even A tier, they just kind of like fall around B, because I don't like how the weapon doesn't feel like it could be used from both ends, right? So then in B tier, we're also going to be adding World Breaker. And World Breaker is a good skin. It's one that I like using a lot because it reminds me a lot of Elderwood with how the blade is like structured and how all these and how like the animations are. But the reason why I'm not ranking it higher is because the blade doesn't feel sharp. Like when you look at it, it looks like a rock, not really like an actual weapon. So I don't really like that about it. And also I feel like his headdress is just too big and it makes the champion's character model look a bit out of place. So now as for C tier, we're going to be putting Arcade. So I know a lot of people, they really love the Arcade skin because they say, oh, it has really cool animations and all this stuff. But my problem with Arcade, and this is going to sound a bit weird with all things I've said, is that Arcade feels too sharp. Like when you look at Hecarim, you imagine his weapon to be something where it's like, if he cleaves you, you're going to be like cut in half and it's going to be like barbaric, right? That's the vibe you get from Elderwood, that's the vibe you get from Blood Knight, right? But with Arcade, it feels like it's more of like a knife, you know? Like more of a sharp blade rather than one that could actually do a lot of damage. And I never really liked the feeling from that weapon. And that's the reason why I never I never really enjoyed using the skin. It's just because the Q just feels way too sharp. Even though the animations are super nice and the particle effects are like really nice on his E and his Q and his R, the blade itself just ruins the skin for me, honestly. So now, getting on to another one, I'm going to be putting High Noon also in C tier. And the reason why has to do with the fact that I feel like the effects are too over exaggerated. And again, like my same kind of problem with the blade from Arcade or from Reaper and Helpless, right? It's just that the effects are super over exaggerated and it doesn't really, it just makes everything feel visually confusing. And the weapon, just having it be kind of like a scythe that goes on one side is another thing that detracts from it for me. So I don't really like that, and because of that, we're just giving it in C. And then we're also going to be putting Hecarim's base skin in C. So in the past, I would have probably rated this a D, but ever since the visual update, his base skin actually isn't that bad. My only problem with him and his base skin is that his body feels like it's too big and his legs are too small. So if they were to make his body slightly thinner on his base skin, it would probably be one of his better skins. But I mean, his base skin really isn't that bad. It just isn't anything better than what we already have. And now last and least, we're going to have Lancer. So a lot of people are going to be confused, right? Since Lancer is Hecarim's most prized skin, since it's the one that costs 10 gemstones. But I don't like it. And the reason why is because, first off, the blade is a lance, so it's not like a blade, so it doesn't feel sharp. It doesn't feel like you could do damage with it, so I don't like that. And also, the skin itself feels like you're playing in the Transformers. So because of that, like, it doesn't feel like the mythical warhorse. It really does feel like you're some kind of weird kind of cross between Transformers and League. And then the blade doesn't even give me that great of a feeling either, so I don't like it. The only redeeming thing about this skin is its R and its E, because the E's effect when you're like fully move speed, it makes it look like you're ghosted, and his R makes it like the animation for his R is one of the coolest. So I'll give it that, but as for like the Q, it just completely ruins it for me. The blade and the Q and the character model I don't really like it at all. And now if you guys are wondering where I'd put Arcana on this tier list, I'd probably put Arcana up in A tier. And the reason why is because I feel like Arcana is a really good skin. And it reminds me a lot of like Headless, if Headless had better animations, right? With how cool the weapon is and how cool the character model is too. So, with that being said, that is the Hecarim skin tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any comments, be sure to leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you all for the next one. Peace.